This is the Seven Figure Standard Podcast, hosted by Arash Vasugi and Mikey Stiller, with mindset and strategies to help you break through and create personal freedom.
Hello, and welcome back to the Seven Figure Standard Podcast. I'm Mikey Stiller, joined by my co-host, Arash Vasugi, and we are so happy to be back with you for another episode. Now, if you are a regular listener, you'll know that a couple episodes back, we promised we would do an episode specifically on what we call embracing the suck. And then we have had several requests since then about when this episode's coming out. So we are recording it right now, and I'm really excited to jump in because I think this is such a unique concept and also one that is so important. So Arash, before we jump in, how are you?
I'm great, Mikey. How are you?
I'm doing great. So this is something that you talk about a lot. What does embracing the suck mean to you? And when did you realize that it was a necessary part of the process?
Yeah, sure. Embracing the suck is in the beginning when you're doing something, you're going to suck at it. Then the next time you do it, you suck a little less. Then the next time you start getting good. Then you start getting great. Then you start being excellent at it. But most people never embrace the suck. So I'm always telling our clients, I want you to embrace the suck. Because what is the old paradigm that most people come from? I'm not going to do something until it's perfect. Until I know it, I'm not going to do it. And then for years, decades, they never create results.
Or they don't want to do something until they're good at it. But the only way to be good at it is to suck first.
Yeah, listen, I get it. It's not an easy concept in the beginning, especially if you don't have a good relationship to failure and success. Because there is no success without failure. Yet most people, and I was like it, so I could resonate with it. I used to do the exact opposite of what I'm talking about. I promise you this. So I have a lot of authority that I can speak on, a lot of years of experience with this. People ask me a lot, Mike, what are the best habits you've ever created? And there's 3 habits that are by far the best that I've ever created that anybody can create that are essential to really creating impact. And that's number 1, doing it now. When you get an idea, act on it. That's embracing the suck. Number 2, do it before you're ready. Do it before you're ready. And number 3, selling. Until you sell an idea to yourself first or to your prospects, you can't make positive change. Selling equals change. That's what selling is. And those are the 3 best habits. Now, in every one that I just went, when I first started, I sucked at it. Every single one of them. I remember when I was in the corporate world, I was starting a new position and I walked in and did a presentation and I apologize. It was so bad, Mike. I can't even tell you how bad it was. And it always reminded me, and I remember walking back out to my car. It was like the walk of shame and my head was down. And then I had this thought that was like, okay, you're not very good at this. Should you go back to college? And I did not want to go back to college. And I said, I better figure out the selling thing. But how did I do it? I sucked in the beginning. Everything that I've ever done when change really happened was the suck motivated me and gave me fuel to get better, to double down and get better and better and better. Yet most people are stopping themselves from their potential because they expect to be perfect right away. And none of it is about perfection. It's about progress, not perfection. And that's why embracing the suck, if you go study successful people, I don't care who they are, they will tell you, when I embrace the suck, they may have different language than me, but they will tell you when I really started doing it before I was ready and I kept getting better and better, that's when my life changed.
I'm so glad you just said progress over perfection, because I think so many people give up before they even give themselves a chance to get good at something or to master something. And my question for you is, how much of embracing the suck is reframing your attitude around something?
Well, it's crucial, but it's a philosophy and an understanding that whenever I'm going to try something new, it's not going to be as good as it's going to be in a month. I'll give you an example. Like for me, and I told you this, Mike, you know this better than anybody. I'm working on constantly upgrading everything I do in my presentations. And what did I tell you? I said, I'm going to do the same presentation 52 weeks in a row. And I want to do it for a full year because I could nail one, but it's not going to be as good as the next one because repetition is so amazing. It is so amazing. I heard this quote that I just loved. And I was at this mastermind event, and it was from a gentleman named Adam Ivy. And he said, repetition creates your reputation. And I loved it. I totally loved it. Like, I fell in love with that quote. I told them, I said, I absolutely love that quote, and I'm going to share it with people because there's nothing more accurate. So when we're chasing, it's because we're not embracing the suck. We're not working on every 90 days upgrading our one skill set that our goal demands and one belief system. So we can always get better at both.
Why do you think that people avoid embracing the sucker and avoid going through those hard parts of getting better at something? Is it a defense mechanism? Is it because it's so uncomfortable? Or what do you think it is?
All of the above, but it's really driven by ego. I don't want to put myself out there because what if I'm not good? Because I know I need to figure out all the details first. Let me get all the details. It's such a losing process. Mm-hmm. The people who get on in life are the ones who take action. They constantly are taking action. I remember
this is obviously something we develop too, because you and I both have young kids. Young kids will go at something a million times. Like, they just know they want to get better. They want to get better without giving up. So that's something we develop as we get older.
Yeah, I mean, you can learn so much from your kids because the kids understand repetition because they're obsessed. They get their mind on something, they're obsessed. Like, I think of my daughter, she picked up tennis about a year and a half, 2 years ago. She's in the backyard hitting balls all day long. It's 115 out. She's like, can we go play? I'm like, no, we're not playing. It's 100. And but that's what I mean by a magnificent obsession. See, most people don't have a definite goal. And when somebody has a definite goal, because they say, I'm going to achieve this by this date. It is non-negotiable. It is non-negotiable. Then you'll get the other person that says, I'm going to create financial freedom sometime in the future. I'm going to build my business and scale my business sometime. If there is not a non-negotiable date, you'll know they don't have a definite purpose. But I will tell you this, where it took me was, like, when I first got in this industry, I remember I was talking to my mentor and I'm like, okay, tell me about your programs, And I mean, he was so great at teaching them, but if you asked him an overview, it was confusing me. So I said, I'll figure it out. And from that day, I just was going and figuring it out. Why? Through action. And every time you do something, your brain the next time is going to make it better and better and better. That's how your brain works. It's always trying to conserve the most energy to do it in the least amount of time. But it started for me 18 years ago. And I could tell you, why was I failing before? There was a lot of reasons. I had terrible habits, but there was a lot of reasons I was failing. But one of them was I was just gathering information. When I felt comfortable, then I was going to do a thing. And then what turned to success? I just started doing it right away. I just started embracing the suck.
Yeah. What's your advice for someone who might be in the middle of the suck, for lack of better words, and how they can not lose momentum or let it affect their identity? Like, just know that it's part of the process.
It's improving their identity every time they do it. Every time they're willing to do something before they're ready, it is improving their identity significantly. So I would tell that person to be aware of the rules of identity. See, identity shifts happen in moments. You may not see the result, but your identity changes, like, oh, I'm willing to do it. Because what it is, it's a sign to the universe. This dude is really serious, or this woman is really serious about it, and the whole universe conspires on your behalf.
Yeah. What is there, like a daily practice or a daily discipline that you do or that you recommend for someone who might be in this season?
Well, for me, It's controlled attention and it's deliberate practice. It's constantly practicing that skill set, whatever it may be. Maybe for some people, it's really creating a better presentation if they're selling something, because everyone's selling something, right? For another person, it could be fine tuning a habit that's really important, but they do it out in the world. They don't do it behind closed doors. So it's deliberate practice is practicing that skill set over and over and over again. And it can be super boring, but they still do it. They still do it. I always say, elite performers from average performers, because average performers will practice their presentation or practice a skill set until they get it right. An elite performer, a true pro in life, practice their presentation over and over and over again until they can't get it wrong. Big difference.
Big difference. I think social media does a really good job of glorifying success and making it look like success is so effortless and so easy and all the great parts of success, but it doesn't necessarily highlight the unfun, mundane, boring, repetitious, sucky parts of success and what it takes to get there. So what would you say to someone to give them a more realistic view of what it takes to create significant success?
For me, it's a really good question. For me, it's constantly overcoming your resistance. When you feel resistance, do it. Like I've discovered just recently, like you have 3 different levels of resistance. You have resistance before you do a thing. You're like, I have this idea. Oh my God, I feel so uncomfortable. You do it. And then when you're taking the action, you're like, did I do it right? So another form of resistance. Then after you're done, say, God, I could have done it so much better. So all of them, like that last form, I could have done it so much better, is actually very healthy, because you're looking at yourself and course correcting and you're embracing where you sucked, where you could say, I could do it better. So whenever you have resistance, because we all have it hundreds and hundreds of times a day, is do the thing you resist right away. If you could train your mind to do that, it is an absolute game changer.
Yep.
It was so funny. Last night, at the time of us recording this, I'm working on a new presentation. And I got out of the pool with my kids, and I came into my office because I had an idea of the presentation that I could make it better. And I was in my office for an hour practicing just this 5-minute segment of my presentation over and over again with this new idea. Why? Why did I do that? Because it wasn't a part of my current presentation. So I had to do the repetition to make it a part of me. Mm-hmm. So that is an example. I had the idea. Instead of waiting, I did it right away. And I'm sharing these stories because I want you to get in the habit of doing things when you get the idea. The ideas are what are so enormously important in our life. The ideas use us to help other people.
I've got an interesting question. Do you ever go into something thinking it's going to go really well, or it's going to be easy, it's going to go a certain way, and you get into the middle of it and you realize, okay, this is going to be a season of embracing the suck, and I didn't realize it, or you're caught off guard or surprised by it? And if so, how do you reframe that in your mind or adjust your expectation?
I mean, now for me, like if you would ask me when I first started really behaving my way in the beginning, I'd have a different answer than now, because I was unaware. I was just doing whatever I thought that would take action, because I really understood action is the most important thing we do to transform our identity. But now I'm aware of it. Like the way I frame it in my mind, I like bulletproofing everything in my favor. That's how I built my attitude. But I think I already know the outcome before it even starts. I always tell myself, this is going to be 10x better than what you thought it was going to be. And then when I'm in the middle of it, I'm like, oh, this hasn't been 10x. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. But when I'm done with it, I reframe and I say, oh, this is an opportunity for you to get better, but you put your heart out into it. See, nobody knows that if you screw up, the only person that's going to know is you, because people are looking at themselves. So, but if we start putting a lot of controlled attention, a lot of focus on building that skill set of what our goal demands. Like every goal demands a skill set. And I could talk to somebody who's in the top 1%. And if you talk to them, they say, I can get better at this. I can get better at this. I can get better at this. You know, I think about my mentor quite a bit because he taught me so many lessons. One day I was in a suite before he was going to speak. And he wanted to go over a presentation with me. And I go to his suite and he's in this robe. It was so funny. It was like 5 a.m. And I said, what have you been doing? He goes, I was up at 3 practicing my presentation. And I said, Bob, you're still practicing it. He said, Arash, I can get so much better. He is the one who taught me this. And I want to teach it to millions of people because it had such an impact on me. He'd been doing it. You got to understand this. He'd been doing it for over 50 years at the time of that story that I'm giving, but he's still practicing it over and over and over again. That was a true legend and a true pro.
And talk about a magnificent obsession.
Yes.
If somebody is listening to this today and they're feeling that resistance, that discomfort, that the right in the middle of the hard, what is one thing that you would want them to take away from this episode, or you would want them to hear and then be able to embody?
Okay, I'm going to say something. I have a strong stance on this, like a super strong stance. Until you embrace the suck, you're not going to achieve your goal. I will tell you that. And I'm very bullish about this because I know this is the truth.
Yeah.
If you're waiting for the perfect time, you're waiting and no, the resistance will go away. The only reason resistance ever goes away is because you defaulted back to your comfort zone. Resistance is a great thing. Not always fun, but it's a great thing for us. It's what grows us. But we have to start understanding the rules of success if we want to create success. You're not going to create success in your comfort zone. It is not going to happen. All you're going to do is keep creating the same year 50 years in a row. So to the person who, let's say somebody asked me that question like you did, I'd say, are you really understanding you, or do you have some false beliefs you have to overcome? You know, our story has to be so much greater than our false beliefs. Most people give into the resistance because they bring their story down to their false belief instead of rise their story up. So in order to get to create massive freedom, because I say this all the time, I told you this morning, every single person has to hear me here. That dream of freedom, financial freedom, emotional freedom is available to every single person. If one person can do it, you could too, but you have to embrace the suck to do it. You have to grow up. And what I mean is grow upwards, not just grow up as a person, but constantly growing upwards. And when you embrace the suck, every time you're willing to fail before you succeed, you just embrace the suck, but you also just transformed your standard and identity.
Amen. All right. I want to ask this question mostly because I know you have a really good story that goes along with it that a lot of people can relate to. But what would you say to someone who is tempted to quit because maybe the suck is just like unbearable? It's hard.
I never quit. I almost quit. I don't know where I'd be today if I quit. I remember it so vividly. I was in San Francisco at my friend John Dugan's wedding. It was the night before his wedding. And I was almost embarrassed because people were like, how's your business going? Well, it's not going, you know? And I told my wife, I said, I just can't figure this out. I'm going to quit. And I really believe, like when I say that I quit for 12 hours. I truly did. And I woke up the next morning so motivated. And I told her, I said, I'm not quitting. She goes, I knew you were never going to quit. She goes, you don't quit. And I said, why didn't you say something? She said, I just let you go through it. And the next morning I woke up and I said, I am not going to quit. I did this whole YouTube video. It was like 45 minutes long on quitting. And thank God I didn't quit. And I don't want anyone to quit because I had a weak moment, but I caught myself and never quit. The person who persists, whether it takes a year, 6 months, 2 years, it doesn't matter. Like I was failing at this for 3 years. And thank God I didn't quit because the next 18 years have been some of the best years of my life, you know, but if I would have quit, I probably would have been working at a job that I didn't want to work at, earning $100,000 a year for the next 50 years. That's what my life would have been. And I would have been such a fraud to who I wanted to become.
You know what I think it's so important for people to know, because whenever you're you're doing your work, you're working on your goal, sometimes you can feel isolated or like, I'm the only person that it's this hard for. It's not this hard for anybody else. Or you see somebody else and they've created a certain level of success and you're like, it must have been easy for them. They must have just had all the right circumstances and everything just lined up for them. Maybe it's not for me. You start having all these irrational thoughts, not understanding that anyone who's created anything has gone through the resistance, has gone through the sucky parts of not being good to get good or to become a master at something. So I think that's an important point for us to make too, is you're not alone. Anyone who's achieved anything has gone through what you're going through right now.
Yeah, this is why it's so important to have a magnificent obsession towards your want and towards your goal. Because if I'm honest with myself, those 3 years, I wanted the shiny results, but I wasn't definite. My mentor, when I first met him, he did something so valuable for me. I didn't know it at the time. I've only picked it up on it recently, just looking back. And he said, Arash, you are so much more confident than I was at this stage. And that had such a big impact on me. I'm like, really? I'm confident? And like when an authority figure you respect gives you this advice that is so beneficial for you. So whenever I'd start doubting myself, I'd revert and I go, Bob told me I'm confident. That's all I heard. And it had such an impact on me. So if I could do that for you right now and understand that, borrow my belief, borrow my confidence, borrow my experiences. And if you do that, you're going to catapult your life.
All right, let's jump into an action step for today.
I want you to write down your goal. If you're driving, put it in your mind. And I want you to get really honest with yourself and say, for me to achieve that goal, what skill set must I raise? And then I want you to embrace it and go do that thing today, even if you fall on your face. Don't wait till you're perfect at it. Don't wait till you're good at it, because you're not going to get good or perfect until you embrace the suck. And I want you to do it today. If you will do that, you watch how good you're going to feel about yourself, number one, but watch in 90 days where that skill set is and go back and put a date on the calendar that you're going to look back from today to 90 days of how far you've come.
Fantastic. Arash, thank you so much. Thanks to all of you. If you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and leave us a rating and review. And most importantly, share this with your friends and family or on social media. And we'll see you next week on another episode of the 7 Figure Standard Podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of 7 Figure Standard. We hope you found the insights and strategies helpful on your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform to help us reach more people like you. To learn more about Arash and Mikey and how Voss Coach & Co. can help you achieve your goals and reach new levels of success, visit vosscoachandco.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of 7 Figure Standard.